Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's podcast. With me today are Liam McKelvey.
Hello.
And Jake Kulkowski.
Hey.
Welcome to the house. We are missing Mike this week. Mike has been moving house over the weekend, and he is suitably tired, and obviously he's been lugging boxes and wardrobes and all that, and he's been sleeping on the kitchen floor as well, or the dining room floor. So he's taking a break this week. I hope you don't mind. So on this week's podcast, we've got a few games to talk to you about. We will jump in straight with Little Nightmares. So Liam, would you like to tell us? We've kind of all played Little Nightmares so far, but Liam, tell us what your thoughts are.
So yeah, Little Nightmares. It's a puzzle platformer from Tarsier Studios. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Right,
Yeah, published by Bandai Namco, and Jake got us an early review copy, which was very, very, very nice.
Yeah, we got this big display kind of.
Yeah, they sent us all this rambunctious stuff. They sent us a pop-up book,
like a proper press kit,
a bunch of tat to try and get us to say some nice things about it. Did it work? Let's find out. So, what do you think, Liam?
So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. Never once did I feel bored or unsatisfied. It was a good romp throughout. Very easy game. Never challenged me.
Tell us about the gameplay. Did you enjoy the mechanic of the 2D side-scrolling?
I did, yeah.
Puzzle mechanic.
So usually it's a mixture of 2D puzzle platforming, the likes of Little Big Planet, that sort of thing. And run and hide survival horror stuff, stuff like Outlast and Alien Isolation, and I think it worked quite well. It's a good mix. The gameplay was, it's not very involved. It's very simplistic. Like, it doesn't take a lot. The puzzles aren't like hard to do or anything.
No,
but I don't think it was detrimental in any way, because I think you just it's sort of like you get the feeling of exploring this really surreal, odd world. And that's what takes the primary focus, I guess. Like, gameplay sort of takes a backseat to...
Yeah, it's fairly casual, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more focused on atmosphere, environment, story, that sort of thing. So, gameplay is pretty simplistic, but it's serviceable,
Yeah, I really enjoyed the gameplay to an extent, but it is limited, like you say. It's only a 2D side-scroller, and I don't really play those types of games myself.
Yeah.
I guess you're more familiar with that type of game, like the Limbo.
Yeah, that's it. Limbo and Inside are the first two games anybody that's played those games will immediately think of when they look at Little Nightmares. But like Liam said, actually, you've got this survival horror sort of run and hide thing that's not in the other two games, really. The fact that you've got to time yourself through the world and make sure you don't get picked on by all these big baddies, that doesn't really happen that much in the other games, so that was a nice change of pace compared to the others. But like you're saying, for you two, it's relatively fresh still, isn't it? So and you found it all right. You didn't find it too much of detrimental, that it was just left right.
It was fun. It was a fun little game. I felt it grew on me. Like, it started off really slow, and I was like, I could be playing Playerunknown's Battlegrounds here, and I'm spending an hour on this. But I played kind of half of it on Saturday, and finished it on the Sunday. Oh no, half on Sunday, finished it on Monday, and I spent an hour and 20 on the first day, and then I finished it in an hour and 20 as well. So I mean, in that sense, I mean, the length of it was a bit puzzling for me, because I was just starting to get into it. I was just starting to enjoy the mechanic of running, hiding, and there was a couple of levels towards the end where it changes and you're getting chased, and there's the adrenaline goes up a little bit, and there's a bit more exciting, and the levels get a bit more interesting. But then it finished, and that was my main problem with it. That it didn't feel like a full climax. Do you know what I mean? There was no full meat to it.
Yeah. It sort of picks up speed, and then it just drops you. I think games like this. I
think they call it edging, don't they?
yeah. This is it. It's the video game equivalent of edging, or if you'd like a non-sexual reference, the video game equivalent of tapas. Delicious, but too small to maybe satisfy the urge. I think what's funny though is a lot of complaints about games these days is that they outstay their welcome. They drag on. Games like this leave you wanting more, and when it's a film that leaves you wanting more, and it doesn't have an ending, people don't feel as ripped off. But when it comes to a game like this, and you're paying quite a lot of money for the amount of time you've got on it, how important is the ending? Would you guys argue the price point? Do you think it's worth the money if you was?
Well, let's just put it out there. It was $20 or £15.
£15 here, yeah.
So what do you think?
So I mentioned it in the office before. You think it's about a 3 to 4 hour game, and it's priced at $15.99 here in the UK. And I compared it to like if you buy a Blu-ray movie here in the UK. So say a movie's like 2 hours, and they're £15 as well. So I think if you use that metric, I'd say it's fair enough price point.
Yeah.
Because you can go back and get collectibles if you want more content, or you can just play through the game again. It's not that long. But yeah. I'd say the price point is pretty fair.
Let's talk about the collectibles. There's these there's the gnomes you've got to hug.
Yeah,
and there's the little like statues that you've got to break. That's basically. It. And they're very limited though, aren't they? Like each level is less than 5 on each level or something.
That's
like that.
right. Yeah, I actually didn't collect all of them. I think I was one off. Oh, there's also the lanterns you've got to light as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Do they count as a collectible? Because I didn't see the tally of those at the end.
I think they do, but there's not like an actual figure you have to hit. You get a trophy for getting a certain amount, but you don't have to collect all of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I guess they must be the hardest ones because, like you're saying, you can go back when you finish the game. You can go back to the different chapters, can't you? And you can see your collectible tally. And that did pull me back. I did go looking for some, but then I kind of just thought, well, why am I doing this?
More games.
Yeah,
to play.
I've got other stuff on my hit list. But the collectibles do pull people back sometimes. For trophy hunters and things like that. And I guess you could say it's replay value. I admit I did go back actually and play the kitchen chapter, which is the second chapter, I think, again.
Yeah.
After completing this because I really liked it, so I went back immediately after finishing it and played that again.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. I like the game more now I've played it than I probably did when I was playing it. I don't know how that translates, but I mean, it's the puzzle. Sometimes what got me is like. Very early on, there's this one point where you go through to the room because more than often than not you're traveling from left to right. So you go through to one of the rooms on the far right, and then there's a dead end, and you can't figure out how to get out. Now, it just so happens that you got to move back to the previous room and climb up the fridge or something. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell do I do here? And I don't like that kind of like deception. I know it's a deception, but I felt like I was being tricked in a way. I know it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle game. That's what I'm supposed to do. But I felt like sometimes it was not intuitive enough for me. And it's like I found myself going to online walkthroughs and like, how do I get past this one bit? And but now, knowing how to get through those levels, I feel like I would enjoy a lot more playing the game because I don't feel like I'm going to be made to look stupid because I don't. And don't know what the answer is. Yeah, no,
you're totally right. And in fact, I had a similar experience, which, funnily enough, was actually a bug in the game. There's a part where you have to open a lift by throwing this monkey thing.
Yeah.
And then you go into the lift and then you throw it again to shut the door. When I threw the monkey the first time, it fell off the edge of the map. It fell down. So I was trapped in this lift thing for ages, like, oh, what do I do? And then so I ended up thinking, right, if I just come off it, restart that bit, and then maybe I'll see it from a fresh set of eyes. And I threw the monkey, and it didn't fall off, and I was like, oh, so it wasn't supposed to do that. So I was trapped thinking the same thing, but it was just because of an error. So that was a bit annoying. But yeah, games like this, sometimes they'll try and make a puzzle out of you trying to figure out which part of the background to climb up, and I find that quite irritating sometimes because you end up traipsing back and forth. You don't move at quite the speed I want you to. It's not like it feels like a bit of a traipse when you're going all the way back looking for, books that might look like you can climb up them. And I don't find that enjoyable. I don't find like a sense of achievement when I overcome that. I just think, oh, good, I can get on with it now.
Yeah,
it feels a bit of just a bit of an obstacle. And it takes the momentum out of it as well. And it breaks the immersion.
What was the best game? We talk about some criticisms there, but what were the game at its best? What would you say were the parts that...
Oh, yeah. Liam, anything that stuck out to you?
Straight away, atmosphere. It is one of the most atmospheric games I've played in a while. Like, as soon as you boot up the game, it's like you instantly believe like you're in this world. And they do... I'm quite astonished how much world building they do using just like animations in the background and the music. And little you see like the gnomes like scurrying about everywhere. And it's just like it oozes atmosphere.
Yeah, it's the there is that like palpable sense of like I know the world is real. It's like a little cartoon that not like a cartoon because that undersells it, but there's like a certain like physicality to it. The graphics themselves are beautiful. The soundscape, fantastic. Like they've built this little game and it looks perfect. There's, I mean, other than your little hitch with the monkey thing, there was no bugs that I saw in it, and it's a solid game. Is it worth £15 again? It's another question for me. But but you know, sticking with the graphics and that, I mean, awesome.
Yeah, one thing that I think about when I worry about the price of games is when I think back in my head now of how I felt about Little Nightmares. If that game was 40 hours or it was 2 hours, I think in my head, what about Little Nightmares? And I didn't only think of good things. Yeah. So as a whole, you know, it's a short game, but for what it's worth, and I don't want to use something as cliche as quality over quantity, but the fact that the world building was so good, like you guys said, makes me feel like it was worth it. And another thing is, and obviously, like you guys heard, we didn't pay for it, okay, but I've paid for games like this in the past. My favourite game of last year was Inside, and that's the same price point, and it's the same length of time. One thing these games do really well is they kind of tell a story and world building without any dialogue, without any words being spoken, without any text popping up on a screen. You just walk through it and you know what's going on. You can describe the story of this game, and it hasn't said anything. There's not one voiceover. There's not one word of English spoken. And I love it when things do that. I like the show and not tell aspect of it. And it's very, very good at building that atmosphere. And then when you finish the game, like you were saying, the more you think about it now, you appreciate it. You look back and go, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that. And for me, what is a game if not that? Your enjoyment with it and your enjoyment of it after playing it, your memories of it. Did I have a nice time with Little Nightmares? Yeah, I did, and I have really fond memories of it. So I would recommend it, and the price, therefore, I would say was fair because I had a good time with, and you know.
I would say it's a fair price for people who've got a decent budget for gaming. For people who are budget conscious, I would say it's not enough. I completed it in 3 hours, and I was just getting warm to it, and I was just getting excited about the game, and then it finished, and I would have felt a lot less positive towards the game had I have. Like, if £15 was my monthly budget for gaming, it was like 3 hours, but that's just not enough.
No, you're right. Yeah. It's a bit of a premium product. I went on the PlayStation. Have got a deal on at the moment, and I think there's like a Call of Duty game and Destiny, the complete collection, together for like £22. Yeah. For £7 more, you get two. Both of big online, two big shooting games online for £7 more. Yeah, you're right. There's better things to spend your money on. But it depends, if you're budget conscious, and if you want hours, if you want a game solely for the amount of time you can spend on it, realistically, are we all going to play it again? Probably not. Okay,
one last thing. What influences has this game drawn from, movies and other games? Did you see in there, was there anything that it reminded you of a lot?
Immediately, it's Tim Burton. It's got to be it looks really similar to these movies like Corpse Bride, Coraline, Nightmare Before Christmas. It really goes for that similar, I think it's grotesque but cutesy art style. Yeah. I describe it as
very twisted, gothic-y, dark stuff, isn't it? So
just Tim Burton really.
Yeah. There was one reference that I saw in there. I don't know if you saw them slugs at the very start, that fall from the roof and they follow you. You ever play a game called Another World?
Yeah.
Them slugs are from Another World. And as soon as I saw them, I was like, the way that they move, especially. So I just love that. I just love that. I don't know if it was just the shape of them and everything. I don't know whether it was a pure accident or what. Yeah. The shape of them, the way that they move, the way that they hang from the ceiling and fall, actually, the way that they shape. I don't know. I just love that.
Grand similarity. For me, I think the one striking similarity, and I'm glad Mike's not here because he always has a go at me for bringing us up so much in the office, but Studio Ghibli film called Spirited Away. If you're familiar with the plot, it's a girl, she finds herself trapped in this world in a bathhouse, which is like a metaphor for prostitution. There's a geisha lady running it, and there's a part where a boat arrives and all these spirits start walking off the boat. And when in Spirited Away, May's parents turned into pigs and they were all pigging out on this bar, all that imagery from Spirited Away has been directly lifted and inserted into certain points of Little Nightmares. Right. So Studio Ghibli, I would not be surprised at all if that was officially one of their influences, because there is so much from Spirited Away in particular that is in that film.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that that I wanted to bring up was like the fact that you get hungry at certain points, and it reminded me of my 6-year-old daughter, because whenever she sees food, she gets hungry, and that was the kind of the connection. It's like, oh, there's food. Dad, I'm hungry. It's like you only ever get hungry in this game when there's food around, and that's a bit of a coincidence, but. It just reminded me.
She's called 6 as well, the little girl.
Yeah,
coincidentally, yeah, that's the name.
There you go.
Maybe that's it. That's another influence there. So yeah, it's a great game, wasn't it?
Yeah. So all in all, let's summarise then. I would say it's definitely worth picking up if you've got a huge budget for games and you like this type of art style and this type of. If the games like Inside and Limbo and that type of thing, there's a puzzle aspect to it. You get chased towards the end. That's the best part of the game for me was when I was being chased and there was adrenaline fueled. There's a couple of cool little features too, where you're on a boat the whole time, and like certain things like there's a grand piano hanging from the ceiling that rocks, and you can only make the jump at certain points of the rocking boat, which is nice. There's a lot of like little lovely parts to this game, and all in all, it's well worth playing. But whether it's worth the £15 or $20, that's a personal decision, and I think everyone should take that decision personally. So,
totally right.
Yeah. With that said, can we move on to what remains of Edith Finch? And Jake, you gonna take this one, dude? You played this over the weekend?
Yeah. Okay. So, what remains of Edith Finch? It's a game by Giant Sparrow, the creators of Unfinished Swan. You may remember that game. And it could be considered a walking simulator. It's
not another walking simulator, Jake. We had this discussion a couple of weeks ago, and Mike totally trashed them. So,
this is the real reason Mike's not in it. No, this game is the perfect game for people that want to say just another walking simulator, because this game is so much more than that. So let me give you a quick rundown of the plot and my time with it. The plot is you play Edith Finch, who is the last remaining alive member of the Finch family. So she goes back to her house in a typical walking simulator fashion. She's walking around an empty house and there's diaries being read out to her, or so you think. Now, the premise of this is when a member of the Finch family dies, what they do is they seal off their bedroom, like as in, it becomes kind of like a memorial to them, and then they just build another room for the next member of the Finch family.
Right.
So the house kind of becomes a physical manifestation of a family tree. It kind of it ends up, wonky and expand.
A tomb at the same time, like a
yeah, exactly. And so these rooms are all locked, and I can't say too much about the game because it's so narrative based, so it's kind of spoiling it. But I'll talk about the first couple of minutes. But Edith Finch finds her way into this Willy Wonka-esque sort of house and finds her way behind the walls so she can go into all these rooms. And kind of how Mario 64, you can jump into the paintings, she jumps into these books and these diaries or these memoirs, and you play through all the members of the Finch families that died.
Right.
Now, here's where the game gets really interesting. Each story plays differently. It's not just listening to people talking. It's got different mechanics. It's got different, there's bits where you're flying around. There's bits where the first story you play is this little girl, Molly, and she wakes up one night and she's hungry, she's eating and eating, and she sees a sparrow out of the window. She opens the window, climbs out, and she turns into a cat, and then you're playing as a cat. And and I won't say anything more than that, other than it gets a lot weirder from there, and that's just her story. So each story in What Remains of Edith Finch could be a standalone, It's like a collection of short stories. Now, because the game is, again, shorter than Little Nightmares, it's only 2 hours long.
So how does that work then? Sorry to jump in, but there's how many stories and how long are they each?
There's about 8-9 stories, and they differ in length. Some of them are as short as 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You play their last moments of their life, so you play them from their last moments of life till when they die.
Wow.
So there's certain stories with maybe the younger members of the family who die in quite shocking and quite abrupt ways, and that's quite a short story.
Right.
But it plays through that, and the way that it's done is something that I'd love to show people that were cynics of the walking simulator. Well, in our discussion of it, and if you're quite new to our Patreon, remember that you can go back and listen to some of our older podcasts. We've got one on walking simulators. And the sort of crux of that discussion was, we said, imagine if we could get a walking simulator, the strong narrative, but we could change up the gameplay. Well, this game does that. And it does it for 2 hours, right, but it does that. Now, with Edith Finch, the problem that most people will have when they play it is that you've got all these short stories coming at you, like I was saying, 5 minutes at a time, and then you move on to the next one. It doesn't have time to sink in. And then you finish the game, and you've just had 9 stories thrown at you, and then the underlying story of Edith Finch or whatever. And then it's the next day when you're thinking about it. You're in your kitchen, you're making a cup of tea or something, and you're thinking, oh, wow, remember that bit? And it really then, it settles down, and it blooms. Because at first, there's too many things hitting you, and you don't really realise how good it is. I left the game immediately thinking I loved it. Now, 2 days later, I think it's the best game I've played this year.
Wow, that is a strong recommendation.
Yeah. Now, the money thing, again, we didn't pay for it, but again, we're trying to think of it completely fair, how you guys listening would feel. It's the same price as Little Nightmares, and it's half the duration. It's £2. Yeah. It's 2 hours, sorry, not £2. But again, it depends what you want. For me, I felt like all those stories, there's a story that's 3 minutes, and I felt like that had more depth to its story than Horizon Zero Dawn. I know that's controversial.
Wow.
I know
don't be dissing Horizon Zero Dawn with Mike not here, because you'll have trouble in the next podcast. Yeah.
But it's got the narrative is so good. It's one of these games, again, like Little Nightmares. It's packaged as a whole experience, I suppose, isn't it? What it does do nicely though is it twists and turns, and if some people can play a walking simulator, but they'll feel that the story is the only thing dragging them through. But even if there's one particular story you don't like, that's finished, you can move on to the next one. You might like that one more.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the name itself, firstly for me, What Remains of Edith Finch, reminds me so much of The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, because there's a name in there, and because it's like,
there's something of
someone. Something of someone else. Yeah. Having played Vanishing of Ethan Carter, my takeaway from that is that it feels too long. There's just so much space. Okay, the world is beautiful and it's well designed. There's too much walking and not enough doing or experiencing or anything like that.
Yeah,
I would much prefer a 2-hour game that throws me in and gets me just connected with the story and the game initially, right off the offset, than be walking around not knowing what the hell I'm doing like I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not dissing. I didn't finish Ethan Carter, so I acknowledge that my review isn't fair. I probably should have finished it before. So whatever I say about that game is probably null and void anyway. But that's for those people who did love the game and don't want to throw myself under the bus there. But with the Edith Finch, I feel like that's a game that I would more enjoy because because there's more attraction to it.
It's more concentrated. Maybe you would have finished The Vanishing of Ethan Carter if there was less walking and there was less blank space. That's the thing with Edith Finch. It's 2-hour game. When you think a 2-hour walking simulator, what's that, 5 diary entries? Yeah. It's not. It's pure concentrated something. There's just one thing after another. And like I say, in fact, it could have probably lasted double the length to let the story sink in. It's so much good stuff, one after another, that you have to really think about it after it's done to be like, whoa, that was it really good.
Yeah.
Again, it's so much I want to say, but because it's such a narrative-driven game, it kind of spoils it. Horizon Zero Dawn that I just talked about a minute ago, I can say, oh, there's these big, tall dinosaurs, because that's only half of the fun. The other half of the fun would be to climb up them. But with Edith Finch, the majority of the fun, or what you'll take away from it, is experiencing a story. So if I told you what happened at the end or whatever, then obviously that's going to be a spoiler, isn't it? So you kind of got to approach this a little bit more like a film. Or it reminds. I know this sounds just so pretentious, guys. Yeah, but when you read a book, when you were reading a book as a kid, and you felt like you're jumping into these pages and that's what this feels like. You feel like you're going down a rabbit hole. You're opening up this book and you literally get sucked into it, and you're playing the last minutes of each member of your family's lives. And then obviously she then throughout the hub world, the house, when you're going from place to place and you've just found out what happened to your relative, Edith Finch is like saying, oh, Granddad always did say this, and it adds this depth to it. And it absolutely shows that there is promise for this walking simulator genre. Yeah, it just shows that we haven't peaked yet. We haven't peaked at Firewatch, Dear Esther, and all that. Gone Home seems to be a popular one. This is the best one yet. Out of the walking simulators, this one innovates more as well.
Nice.
So not only does it innovate more in gameplay, its stories are really strong. So I would definitely say, if you've not played the walking simulator before, this is definitely the one to go into first before any of the others.
That is a great, a great thing to say. I mean, we're always advocating people pushing genres forward and trying new things. Now, it appears that that's the case with Edith Finch. The question I've got for you is, with all the themes of death, it seems like you're dying 9 times in this game.
Yeah.
Do you think it's for a more mature audience, or do you think that people of a young kind of would appreciate it?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of an unusual one because the deaths aren't particularly. It's not going to like show someone being decapitated and all that. It does touch on some of the characters that you play. Their deaths are very young. Some of them are very young.
Yeah.
However, and how sad that is.
Is it very traumatic in that sense?
I think if you're a parent and it might hit home a bit more. That's the thing. It's not so much. This is the thing with these sorts of games and things like this sort of stuff. If you went in there as a 14-year-old apathetic teenager, or you were a younger player, it probably wouldn't hit you as much as it does now. So depending on your life experience, if you've had deaths in the family, if you've lost a parent, or anything like that, it'll probably hit you more. So it's clever that it plays on your personal experience with grief. So, but the thing is, because it touches on all these different deaths, these different ages and all that, if you've ever experienced death, and at one point we all do, not first person, but we all lose someone we like or love, then it will hit home for you. And yeah, I wouldn't say it was a mature game in a sense of gore or violence, but I think if you are a more mature person in terms of what you've gone through, then you'll probably get a little bit more out of it than somebody that wants to play war games because they want to feel like what it's like to be in the war or whatever.
Yeah, do you feel like it's replayable? Would you play it again?
Played it twice. I played the game twice. Yeah.
I guess you can if it's only a 2-hour commitment.
Yeah, well that's it. And this is the thing. It was like I had the day and it sunk in, and I really, really thought, I love that one part. So there's also like the chapter select thing. When you finish the game, you can go and play these certain stories. I got all the trophies. I 100% of the game. And then I went back and just played the whole thing again to show my girlfriend, because I was like, you need to look at this. It's like wanting to show her a film.
Yeah.
I was like, you're going to like this story. Watch this one story. And she was like, well, that's good.
Yeah.
And she'll watch one of the short stories, and that's all. She didn't have an idea of the full story, but she just watched this one story, and she was like, well, that's really clever.
Would it be fair then to categorise it as an interactive film?
Yeah, this is the thing with walking simulators, isn't it? A lot of people say they're more like interactive films. This is the only one I've played where it has enough gameplay and enough different gameplay mechanics that it's kind of like its own. It's still very much a game. There's parts where you walking through listening to things like an interactive film. And there's parts where you play as a cat at one point. You're bounding around from tree to tree.
Is there much gameplay involved in that?
Yeah, you're chasing this bird and you're jumping from branch to branch along the house, and then, because this is a flashback, remember, you can see your parents through the window and they don't notice you because you're a cat. And then, I'll tell you what happens after. So you catch the bird and then you transform into an owl. Then all of a sudden you're playing as an owl, and then you're flying. So the gameplay is completely different. And then you're using the do button because you've got R2 if you're on the PlayStation, and that opens doors and things. But when you're an owl, that swoops down, and then you're trying to catch some rabbits.
Right.
So you've just gone from being a girl, then you're bounding around like a platform, and and then you're flying around, and it's a completely different mechanic. Yeah. And then, so that's the very first bit of the very first story. Again, the story is very much spoiler free, what I've told you. So you know. But yeah, so that's just an example.
Yeah.
And you can only imagine how crazy it gets from there. So like, gameplay wise, it changes it up so much. It never repeats it, and it's just very, very intuitive.
I feel like walking simulators is such a derogatory term. I've said that in the previous podcast, and it doesn't seem like this is a walking simulator at all. To me, it feels something different. I don't know whether we need like a sub-genre or a different genre completely. How do you categorize this? If there was no such thing as a walking simulator genre, which like it puts games too much in boxes and categorizes them like wrongly.
Yeah,
because like I mean, playing as an owl, playing as a cat.
Yeah, you're not walking. Yeah, exactly.
What would you say? What would you
say?
Oh
gosh, it's hard.
A fair way to.
There seems to be a thing of people trying to term them as like narrative games. I've seen people refer to like Journey and Inside and Limbo as narrative games.
Yeah, with like Inside and Limbo and Little Nightmares, you could consider that more of like a platformer because there's more to it. But with this, I'd say it was like a narrative-heavy exploration game. You know, you explore your narrative exploration mystery game. You know, because each little bit of gameplay is so different, it's not worthy enough of being lumped into one genre. So you're only an owl for one bit and you're never an owl again, so I can't call it an owl simulator, you know, or a cat simulator. But each bit is so different. And one thing that really got me and it made me smile so much, there's a Easter egg to there's like a nod to the Unfinished Swan in it, and I loved that game. And that for me was like, I put the controller down and I was like, and I know it's like Peter Molyneux here, I put the controller down, but I was like, I put the controller down and I was like, that's so clever, that's so cool. And then like I went and made a cup of tea and I thought, I'm going to really enjoy this because I wanted to slow down because I thought I was going to get near the end. As soon as I saw this, I thought, I'm going to slow down and enjoy this. I made myself a drink and kind of play it, but I can't express how much I love this game. Probably, almost certainly the best game I've played this year.
Well, that is an awesome recommendation, and all we have to do is to stop Mike from rolling his eyes when we mention this game, call it a walking, narrative-driven like exploration game. There we go. So for everyone else who wondered what this game was all about, I think Jake did an awesome like breakdown of it for there. So it's out now on PS4.
Yeah, PC as well, and I assume Xbox One. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And I believe it's at the same price as Little Nightmares, about 15 quid, something
or
like
20 bucks. Okay, so we're going to move on now to an older game that Jake and I both played called Her Story. Now, this is a different game. Like, this is another one of those games that is really hard to categorize.
Yes.
Because of the gameplay involved, it's just really unusual. Have you heard of any about this?
Yeah, it's like the interactive detective mystery sort of game.
That's right, yeah. That's exactly what it is. Have you played it? Have you had any interest
I've not played it, but I've heard quite a lot of comparisons to like the old point-and-click games, you know, like Monkey Island, that sort of thing, but like a different spin on that formula.
Yeah,
that's fair, I guess, but I don't know. It's okay. Let's break it down. So the whole game is you're faced with this screen, and basically you've got all these tapes on this. Is it on a hard drive?
You're like a cop, aren't you? And you're on like the network.
Well, no, that's assumed. It's assumed. Isn't it assumed?
I think so. You've got like a database, haven't you?
Yeah,
that's it. Of these tapes. Oh yeah, actually, it doesn't ever say you.
It doesn't say who you are, does it?
And
we'll talk about that in a bit. But you put in search terms into this computer, and it brings up results based on your search terms. Of a certain amount of videos, and all the videos on this database are of this interview with a suspect for a murder, and it's up to you to decide or to find out whether this woman killed the victim or not.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah,
and it's so enthralling, just like following your own narrative. That's what's important about this game, is that you follow your own investigation in your own head. It's like, oh, what about this? And you're asking questions in your own head. And you think, I know what, I'll search for this term. And it does actually make you feel like an investigator, some sort of like a detective. And there's not many games that give you just a gameplay and a database or whatever it is, and they. Like everything else happens in the real world. Like it's you being the investigator in the real world. That's what's so lovable about this game for me, is that it changes things up and it makes you experience something that I haven't experienced in gaming before. I don't know how you feel.
Well, what's so weird about it is that you're on this database, right? And you know that there's about 600 videos. I think there's 613 videos, but you can only see 5 at a time. So and this database has got this like super technology in it. So if in any of these tapes the woman says a word, it'll appear. Let's say she says the word Jake, right? And then I type in the word Jake on the search bar. All of the videos where she said that word come up, right? So that's the premise of it. That's where you use your own intuition, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like, let's say we think she might have murdered him, or Yeah, it's a him, right? Sorry.
Bit of a spoiler, but yeah.
No, but so it's a him, right? And let's say you don't know anything about it, and you think, okay, so let's type in the night of. So, because then she'll be like, well, where was I on the night of? I'll tell you where I was. You know, so that's it, isn't it? It's all about using your intuition. Or let's say you maybe at one point you think she's choked him or she's knifed him or, you know, set him on fire, whatever. You can type in this word, fire or knife or whatever. And if she said it, it appears. So you have to use your meta knowledge of like trying to guess what she would say.
Yeah.
Or like if you think she wants to blame someone, you type in like, I don't know, it was her, or, you know, it was him, or I'm innocent, or alibi. You know, you search all these words, but because you know that there's 600 videos, you kind of want to think, well, you know, it's
little like video clips, aren't they? Like YouTube videos or something. But the interesting thing is that, like you said, only the top 5 show up. So there might be 11 search results, but you only get to see the top 5. So it's up to you to try and find a different search term, try and access the more hidden videos. So you've got this. There is a big like visual indication of how many videos you've unlocked, isn't there? So you can see like how much of the information you've got access to, and the story itself is that obviously there's a huge you know, story like, did she do it, didn't she do it, it's not that simple. There's a lot more to it. There's like trying to figure out exactly what the hell is going on, because sometimes you're like, it can lead to a lot, like you can have a debate with somebody, and I still disagree with like you, for instance, like what exactly the story is all about. And that's what's beautiful about it, that the game doesn't actually finish on a set in stone. Well, for some people it does, but for me, it's still ambiguous for me.
It doesn't, you know, at no point in the game does it come up and say, you know, game completed, you're right, she didn't do it, she did it this way, she didn't do it this way, whatever. You'll never know. So the only thing you can do is, I guess the only way you can beat the game is by unlocking all the videos and making your own assumption. So even now, like a real life, like Making a Murderer, you know, the big TV show, people debate, he's innocent, he wasn't innocent. It's like that in a game, isn't it? Apart from you have to uncover the fun bit of it, like you were saying, is figuring out the search terms and uncovering it and making your own interpretation. And then half of the fun is discussing it with the other people.
And like you said, you're playing it with your girlfriend, and she was taking notes. I was taking notes. I mean, I did a let's play of it last year, and it's one of the games where you're like, oh, hang on a minute, I want to ask her this in just a minute, so I'll make a note of this. I'll like make a note of all these search terms that you want to ask her. And it's so weird because there's no games. I've not played any games that are like this before, and I loved it so much. I'm so waiting for a sequel. Yeah, it's just so unusual.
It is, but the good news is, because it is so unusual, it's not like it flopped. It did well. It won BAFTAs. It won loads of awards, and hopefully that is inspiring the developers to make a new one or something similar. If it's half as, you know, innovative as her story, then it'll probably be something completely different again. But if it's half as amazing or half as cleverly made as her story,
it's very cleverly made. And I don't know whether that was design or just like happened across like a winning formula. But one thing's to be said, that the actress who plays the woman in her story, she does a cracking job. She's so believable. Yeah, exactly.
When you're trying to figure out if she's lying or not about certain things, you know, there's something very, very good there. And so, you know, I was just talking about Making a Murderer, and that's one thing. That was a big water cooler moment, they call it, don't they? Everyone's talking, everyone's a detective on stuff like that, aren't they? You're watching telly, everyone's a detective. If you fancy yourself a detective, give this game a go. I'm not sure, is it still on the Humble Bundle? Or is it
I think expired? It is, you know.
Yeah, it's on the Humble Bundle at the moment.
It's a short game though as well.
Exactly.
It's another 4 hour.
It's it's as short as you might think you've cracked the case after 20 minutes. You know what I mean? And so it ends when you want it to end. But I think at the moment it's on the Humble Bundle, which means you can pay as little or as much as you want for it with a bunch of other games actually.
Yeah, for me it's a must buy out of that. If you guys are interested in this at all in any way, it's an absolute must buy. Yeah. Just because it breaks, it's just like so unusual. There's no game that you will play like this. Yeah. You know, there's no game released like this, and you have to try it. Well, and one thing before we round off this discussion that was most interesting for me is like I do consider myself like an amateur psychologist. Right. So I'm always like assessing people's like body language and their facial tics, and like I've read books before, like about psychology and that, and it's interesting to see where people look with their eyes when they're accessing memories as opposed to making shit up.
Right.
So it's interesting, and I find myself doing that when I was watching her. Where, she was asked the question, did she do it or not? And I'm just checking her body language and checking the way she uses her eyes, and that's what's so great about it, and it speaks to her performance as well. Is that it all like
it's kind of like they've realised that there will be people watching that are into body language and stuff like that. They factored it in, haven't they? They factored it in for people like that, for people that are a little bit more in tune to things like that, body language, expressionism, and like, you know, the art of lying or lie detection. It's like they have factored that in, and I love that. It's not as shallow as you think it is it?
No, it is very deep. And let's hope if they do a sequel that they find an actor or an actress that's as top notch as the one. We apologies for not knowing the actress's name.
Have you guys ever heard of Stories Untold? That sounds like a game you both really enjoy. It's like a mashup of Her Story and Edith Finch. So it's like gameplay similar to Her Story, where you're just typing away, and you're trying to like crack codes and solve mysteries. But you go through 4 different tapes, and it's like a horror game. It's got a very like Stranger Things vibe to it. And you're trying to work out these like really like disturbing, odd mysteries.
Is it fairly new?
Yeah, it's quite new. It's like the whole premise of the game is you're sat down like at your computer, and you've got these 4 tapes, and they're each a different mystery and story.
Yeah. I remember you showed me, didn't you, last week? And the logo looks like Stranger Things a bit, doesn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, and it's just like I've only ever played the demo, and I'll probably pick up the full game, but. It just it
does look interesting. This is £7 to pick up. Developer was No Code, published by Devolver Digital.
It just it popped into my mind there. It sounds like a game you guys probably like.
Yeah,
February 27th this year. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna be looking at that.
Maybe someone listening has played it. If you have, let us know what you thought.
Maybe we'll be reviewing it this time next week. Who knows? So yeah, that kind of sums up my thoughts on Her Story, I guess. It's a definite must buy for me. Whatever price, even if it's £15, I say just pick it up. It's that different.
If you want to play it, if you're sick of the same old, it's essential.
And you want to be detective.
And and even if you fancy yourself, have this little test, see if you can get to the bottom. And if you have done Her Story, let us know what you think. I'm trying to think how we can do it in a spoiler-free way, because I really want to hear what people think. Same time, you don't want to ruin it for anyone else, do you? So it's a bit of a tough one.
I'll probably pick it up off the back of your guys' recommendation now.
It's definitely...
It's just because it's so different. Like on its, just for that reason alone, I think it's worth picking up, because, like I said, you want to experience something like it.
Yeah, it's really unusual, actually, that all 3 games mentioned this week are all very different individual games, and if anyone is fancying buying something new, any of these 3 are a good jump-off point. Really,
that's it.
You know, these are pretty good recommendations, if I do say so myself.
And with that said, let's move on now to our questions from Patreon. And of course, for those of you who aren't subscribed on, not subscribed, it's not subscription, who don't donate on Patreon, you get to ask us questions. You get to be part of our community. We've started a Discord server now, so I've been jumping on over the weekend and playing some games with some of you awesome people. I've been playing Playerunknown's Battlegrounds recently over the weekend with some of the guys on Discord from the Patreon community. It's like a nice budding community now.
Yeah, it's nice.
It feels like
it's really good. You've been on the voice chat, haven't you?
That's right.
And I've just been staying text-based. It's good when, you know, your girlfriend steals the telly to play Persona 5 for 12 hours. I can just jump
like they do.
Jump into Discord. I made a picture tutorial how to make a good cup of tea, so people like Mike could one day watch it and then learn some lessons.
We need to get him on Discord, because he obviously
he needs
his lessons.
No, it's been a good community, and there's a lot of different time zones, people from different time zones, so there's been quite an active chat 24/7. Really,
what I love about it is that they're not there just for us and to chat with us. Like they chat with themselves when we're not there, and I love that aspect of it. And so for those of you patrons who've not joined us on Discord, I mean, we're around for chatting on the text most of the time, and you know, on the evenings and weekends, I'll be around to be playing games. That's for sure. Whether the other guys get on board with that, whether they get free time or not, we'll have to wait and see. But it's definitely worth getting.
Checking it out. Why not get involved in the community?
Gaming community that's like you know.
Yeah.
That's all about pretty good gaming, which is awesome. Okay, and talking about the community, we've got some questions from you guys this week on our Patreon feed. So let's go first with Logan Watts, who asks, do you guys have a favourite game or gaming console that you wish you were old enough or born yet to get at launch?
I don't know if this is applicable to us, really. Liam's the youngest member of our team, right?
The problem with this question is, Logan, is that I'm old enough to have had everything at launch.
Yeah.
That's how old I am, dude. Other than the Pong game, like we mentioned. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, but that was like the worst, like simplest game ever. But yeah, I've been alive throughout every single console. So we're gonna throw this question over to Liam. Mm-hmm. So what do you wish that you were around when it was launched?
SNES, it's got some of the best games ever. I know it sounds stupid.
Funny because I was like 16.
Yeah, I know it sounds stupid with you two guys, but SNES for me. It's got some of the best games I've made. It's got Final Fantasy 4, 5, 6. Yeah. You got Secret of Mana, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past,
Mario Kart.
First ever Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Like I would have loved to been there and been part of that launch hype for the SNES. There's so many quality games on it that it would have been fun to have been part of that experience, but I wasn't born yet, so yeah.
You little nipper, you. I feel so bad for you, you bastard. So how about you, Jake? You're a bit younger than me, but
a bit younger, yeah. But in fact, I went to my parents' house over the weekend, and they just moved house. And they said, Jake, we've just downsized. You need to take all your old consoles back. So I've just reacquired loads of my old consoles from when I was a kid. I have the NES and the Light Gun. I had my Super Nintendo, my Mega Drive. Yeah, I've got the Light Gun and Duck Hunt still there. ZX Spectrum. But to be completely honest, a lot of people talk about the good old days. Anything before that probably wasn't worth talking about. Anything before ZX Spectrum, Pong, who cares? We're living in a world where we've got the best games. I remember the PlayStation 1 coming out, and I feel sorry for people that weren't around during the birth of 3D gaming, the N64, the PS1. That was a lot of people consider that the most innovative time because everything was jumping.
Yeah. When did the PS1 come out?
1996, I think, 1997. Mm-hmm. You were definitely alive, don't worry.
I would have been 1 or 2 at the time. Yeah.
Well, I got a PS1 just the Christmas of 1997 with Worms and Croc Legends of the Gobbos. Yes. But yeah, so that's about it really. We haven't missed out, have we, guys?
Well, that's it. We haven't missed out at all. And Logan, let us know what you missed out on, because obviously this discussion's come from somewhere. I'm interested to know what you feel like you wanted to be born when it was up. So let us know again in this week's comments. Okay, let's move on. We've got another question here. Morton Rene Alkvist. Sorry, I totally screwed that pronunciation up probably, but he or she asks, I don't even know.
Morton's a dude. He's
Morton, sorry, he is. He's a good bloke.
He's a good guy.
Morton, okay. Have any of you guys played D&D pen and paper? What do you think of it?
I have, yeah.
Never once in my life.
That's no from me. It's a no from Liam. So tell us about D&D pen and paper, Jake.
I
all on you, dude.
Yeah, God, I can't really remember more, and I've only played it once. It was D&D 5th edition. I was a halfling rogue. I think I started in Neverwinter, and I got to Waterdeep, City of the Dead, and died. And it lasted about 5 hours, and I've not played D&D since. My sister and my brother, brother-in-law, they love D&D. They play D&D for 8 hours every Saturday with a group of their friends, and they're playing 2nd edition D&D, like the old school D&D, I think. But they're massive into it, and when they're not playing D&D or Overwatch, they're watching people play D&D online. There's like a whole there's a whole community online, and Vin Diesel was on the episode when I went to theirs the other day. Vin Diesel was playing it with them. I don't know if you're a D&D fan, you'll know exactly what I mean. But yeah, Vin Diesel's a big D&D fan, don't you know?
That is interesting.
Yeah, there's a tabletop game called Mythorog made by like Varg Vikernes. And I'm kind of interested in that. That's like more European mythology. So maybe if I was to play another tabletop game, I'll play that. But yeah, at the moment, my brother and sister are always trying to get me to play D&D again. I don't want to play 8 hours a week. It's like a Saturday job, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a full weekend job.
Yeah. So so I played it once. I hope that answers your question, and I hope that it wasn't too funny that Waterdeep was as far as I got.
Okay, let's move on. Durr asks, which games do you feel handle progression well? I've always loved the way Rogue Legacy tunes the difficulty through the upgrade system. Play longer and it gets easier over time. It lets good players progress faster, but still encourages people less skilled to get through it by making it easier over time. That is an interesting question.
Rogue Legacy, yeah. That was a free PlayStation Plus game a couple of...
Many moons ago.
Yeah, I played through that game, actually, and I know what this guy means. It's... Each time you play, you're playing like the same world, aren't you?
Each time you die, but you start again as like the ancestor or descendant, is it, of your previous character?
Yeah, it'd be Liam, then Liam the second, then Liam the third, wasn't it?
And you just keep going until you beat the game.
That's quite a good progression. Rogue-like games are popular and they're named after this type of game, right?
Yeah.
I can't really remember much about the game. There's Sharon, the god of death, and he's outside the castle door, and you can pay to not lose your souls or something. I don't know. Progression in the game. This is a tough question, actually. We did talk about Horizon Zero Dawn being a good progression-based open-world game recently, right? Because most open-world games, the first 20 minutes, you get all your weapons, you get everything. Horizon Zero Dawn had like this tutorial, which kind of makes you progress well. Then you think, oh, that's it, I'm in the open world. But no, there's more. And then you get outside the mother's cradle, and then there's more. And then you go to the first city, and then like Meridian or whatever, and then there's more. And then so that handles progression quite well. I like how that kind of drip feeds you through. It does plateau towards the end. What else?
I kind of like games that just throw everything at you from the start, and like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like that, is that it doesn't help you out at all. It's like, this is an open world, you do what you want right now. I don't like games that hold your hand to and restrict you from getting into the meat of the gameplay really early. So for me, I think I don't know, it's kind of that hand holding thing that developers like to do now, where it's like they don't want to throw too much at you early on, just in case you get overwhelmed. But I like that aspect of games sometimes. You got to figure out shit for yourself.
Yeah, it's like I was saying about Persona 5, wasn't I? Sean was playing it over the weekend. The first 6 hours of that game is like a tutorial.
It is.
Like she's like 6 hours, and then 6 hours into it, she learned about you can merge personas, and I'm like, God, the whole first 6 hours of this game is like a whole...
It just keeps unraveling and unraveling. Like after you talk about 6 hours, like 12 hours later, you'll learn something else. You get extra characters or whatever.
Yeah. I think I know what mine is, actually. Resident Evil 7, because you get a stronger gun. Bit after, like you get a pistol, you start getting powerful with the pistol. New bad guys come, you get a shotgun.
Yeah.
And how the mansion works, you go back and forth. It handles progression, but it also handles regression. Going back, it handles you go back to previous places, but you come back stronger. You come back, you go to different places. I really like that. I felt like that the whole of Resident Evil rolled so nicely. Like towards the end of the game, you get a machine gun, and everything rolls so nice, and the places progress. You don't just stay in that mansion the whole time. You go into these different places. So yeah, I'd say Resident Evil 7 handles that pretty good.
What are your thoughts on progression in?
So I'm going to say something similar to Resident Evil, Metroid Prime, or any of the Metroid games really, where you start the game with no powers whatsoever, and you explore all these areas, and you pick up new powers, like you get the smart bomb or the plasma cannon, and you can go back to say you saw a door off in the distance but you couldn't quite reach it, but now you've got like the double jump, you can jump up and get there. It takes you to an entire new area. And same goes for the Castlevania games from like Symphony of the Night, which handle progression really well, where you start the game, you're quite powerful to begin with, but you get even more powerful as you explore the castle. And then I don't really know if it's a spoiler, but when you get to the end of the game, it turns out that's only half the game, and there's a completely different castle that you get to explore, but you have to have met certain progression requirements to get it.
Nice.
So, but you can go back at any time and access the castle. So, say you can discover it, but then you're not quite powerful enough to get there. You can just keep going exploring, and then once you think you're powerful enough, you can just go back at any time. And yeah, I think it does that well.
Yeah, I think a fun little fact there, by the way, Jake's fact of the week, is that if you ever hear a game getting called a Metroidvania game, because you hear that with Dark Souls stuff, that is what is a mixture of Metroid and Castlevania. Both of Liam's examples amalgamated. AKA, you go back to a place that you couldn't access earlier, but now you can because you've got a new ability. So for those that never knew what a Metroidvania game is, It's what Liam just said.
The more you know, Jake, the more you know.
Got him.
Okay, on that note, let's move on to Daniel Jepson, who asks, do you guys have any talents, hobbies besides gaming and Gareth's guitar skills? And, well, I can jump in here for you, Jake.
Okay.
You're a music producer yourself. I mean, you've had various success producing music in your time.
That's right, yeah. I make electronic music. Well, I did. I don't really anymore. I want to kind of start like a one-man band at home with my... One-man band sounds funny, like I've got a drum. No, I used to make like chiptune music and stuff. I was on Radio 1 a couple of times. I got to play festivals abroad. My last festival was in Barcelona in 2015. And I like headline that or whatever you want to call it, and it was like an hour and a half set. Yeah, I like electronic music. I like all music really inspired by video games, but with a bit more of a modern sound, I guess. But yeah, chiptune music I used to make quite a lot of. But at the moment I'm trying to I've got a Fender Telecaster at home, and I've been playing guitar for a while. Not like Gaz, but I've been playing guitar for quite a while, and I've got all the stuff at home to try and start layering and looping, and I've spent money on virtual drum kits and stuff like that, so I'm looking at starting some new musical pursuits. But yeah, I did at one point make a lot of electronic music, and I was lucky enough to go around the UK, go abroad, go to Europe, and and do that. And it was funny though, because I was quite elusive. I didn't really like doing interviews and stuff like that. Just get on with it, make the music, and yeah, but at the moment, my main passion is cooking. I really like cooking. I like the science behind it. I like the art behind it. I like everything. Like when it comes to making burgers, I understand how fat ratios are, how to grind your own meat. Really love cooking, and I like talking about food. And my big passion in life is food, really. But that's about it, really, for me.
That's a nice kind of array of different things, because you're into gaming, you're into movies as well, you're into...
Oh, I love films,
yeah. So another hobby of yours, loving films. Maybe we can harness that interest in another way on YouTube in future, but
yeah,
for now we'll stick with gaming. But
but yeah, film, that's another one. My films. I love films.
Epic film time with Jake. And
epic film time. I don't know if anyone would ever be interested in that, but it's I love films. I'm always watching them, especially horror films. I like horror films, especially old horror films, like the 70s and stuff like that.
Like B movies and that.
Yeah, all that, like the old sort of satanic scares, like Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and all that. Yeah. It just it's funny because horror is always a good way of looking at what people are scared of. At the moment, with the current climate where people are scared of different races, different religions and things like that, people can't trust their neighbours because they might not be the same as them politically. Horror's really doing that now, and the bad guys are the people next door. Take Resident Evil 7. The neighbours next door are the real monsters, never mind the devil and all that. So I like that.
What is it about kids then? Let me ask you a question. What is it about kids? Why are kids so scary, Jake?
You should know why. You know what I mean? You should know why kids are so scary. I don't know what. I think it's just the fact that it's something so innocent and pure, being
corrupted,
evil.
Sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Because you trust them, and you don't suspect a little girl to be a vampire, and then pow, you're a goner.
You're a goner.
But yeah, maybe we can talk about that another time. But and I believe, Liam, that kind of Venn diagrams into one of your big hobbies as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Again, film for me as well. I absolutely love films to death. I go to cinema near enough every other week or so. Yeah. Always watching movies. Love a wide range of genres. I don't really know what else to say about it.
Let me ask you a question. What was your favourite film of the last 6 months, 12 months?
Last 6 months? I'm trying to think what I've seen.
One that sticks out in your mind more than your
really
favourite, I guess.
Sticks out.
Do you like these Marvel movies? Is that you used to have a guy who...
I do, but I'm trying to think of a much more artsy answer to make me seem more intellectual.
I'm trying to get out
the
honest answer, not like the... you don't want to seem like you're too much of a...
Yeah, because you went to see Guardians of the Galaxy.
I did, this weekend.
So tell us about that. What, your short review and spoiler free?
Good movie, entertaining, but like a roller coaster. Once you're off it, the thrill's over. You're probably not going to remember it.
Yeah, just
but
consumable.
Worth the ride. In other words, pure consumer movie.
Good in IMAX.
Very good in IMAX. Yeah. I don't know. I'd probably say Logan stuck out to me. I know it's another comic book movie.
Yeah.
No, it's
But
different.
I heard good reviews about that movie though.
It did so much. It
got that Last of Us thing into it.
very much so. Yeah. I think that's why I liked it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't it was a comic book movie that wasn't a comic book movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if you're not a fan of comic book films as a genre, you'd still like this film. You could watch it, you know, as an average. Like if you like Western films, it's probably you know, it's probably, I don't want to say closer to Western, but it's got a lot of those sort of things.
It's got a lot of influence from Westerns in it.
And since we're on movies, I was so aggrieved to not be able to answer that question last week.
Mike wasted his answer, didn't he?
Mike wasted his answer, and I wasn't there, and I was
4 through
screaming,
6.
"No, I'm not there answering his questions."
Yeah.
So if you just indulge me for this,
I want to hear
podcast.
this.
Yeah, this is
My
interesting.
top 3 movies. Okay, my number 1 movie is Groundhog Day.
Okay,
That's a good one.
I think I've mentioned this in the office before, but Groundhog Day, because Bill Murray's awesome.
Yeah.
And because is it the other dude from Ghostbusters directed it and made it? The guy with
Harold
glasses.
Ramis.
Yeah.
Yeah. And any link to the original Ghostbusters is awesome in my book. But yeah, it's the whole progression thing. It's like this dude gets kind of cursed with having to relive the day over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay. And because he's such an evil little bastard to start with, and he gets like he's basically so egotistical that he just tries to, at the start, he just tries to get what he wants, which is he tries to sleep with the girl. Yeah. He tries to get everything that, you know, it's just like really like self-involved and self-concerned. And then he learns that it doesn't give him fulfillment in his life. And it's only through process of like doing nice things for people, like feeding the guy who's hungry in the shop, and through changing the tire for the old women who break the tire, and like saving the kid falling from the tree. That's where he finds his fulfillment, like from being like subjected to this curse where he has to do the same thing over and over again. He finds himself, and he finds that doing good things for others is what brings him like the completion of his life. Like he learns to play the piano, and it's only through like completely not trying to pursue the woman that he grows as a person, and he turns into somebody really like admirable. Yeah. And it's because of that the girl falls in love with him, and then the curse is broken and it ends. I find that story is just like phenomenal. I think it's great. I think the commitment to self-improvement is something that I always live my life by. It's like always trying to improve yourself for, you know, not for egotistical reasons, for, you know, for the greater good and for helping people all you can throughout day to day. And I think like that one film just sums up everything that I love about life, I guess.
Fuck, that's a good answer. That's a really good answer. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you can see why I was so gutted last week.
You know, Liam's film, number 1 film, also has Bill Murray in it, and it was Lost in Translation.
Yeah.
For a little recap for those not listening.
That was Back to the Future is number 1.
Oh yeah,
Lost in Translation was number 3 though.
It was in backward. Yeah, I saw it 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, I see where the themes are coming.
I don't think Bill Murray was in any of my 3, but maybe it should be. What about the other 2 though?
The other 2, well, one would be Avatar, because I saw that in 3D. It was the first. It was because of the experience more than the film itself. Yeah. And I know people say that it rips the
like Pocahontas.
Yeah, exactly. Pocahontas
Dances with Wolves.
Dances with Wolves is what I was going to say. Yeah, it rips the storyline from that. But just as a purely cinematic experience, it was far and away the best one that I've had in a cinema. I wasn't expecting anything. I watched it in 3D, and it was like it was like anything like completely aside
pure
from anything
spectacle.
else. Yeah.
I don't think it's been topped since. You know, 3D wise.
I have to say, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was pretty similar along those lines. Like, if you go see it in IMAX 3D, so it's one hell of a visually dazzling film.
Nice one, yeah,
beautiful film to look at.
Avatar. There's how many more Avatar? They've just announced another 4 in the coming years, haven't they? Yeah. So there's more, because you know, if you think Avatar is done, it's not.
It's weird because he's written the 4 concurrent scripts and they're filming them all at the same time, and they're releasing the first one the end of next year, and then the next one the year after that, and then they're giving a 2-year break, and then they're doing 2021 and 22 or something. Like within, I don't know, I don't know if I forgot my timeline right there, but we're talking 6 years before we see these videos that they're filming right now, these movies, that they're filming right now, which is weird. Going back to my top 3, I can't remember what my second was. Avatar was number 3. If I remember it, I'll mention it some other time. I can't remember what it was now. I should have probably written them down.
Some well thought out answers though. You should be proud of yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just love Groundhog Day, and it's one of them films that you can think about after you've watched, and that's why I love it. Memento, that was it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Memento, because it's one of them movies that you don't know what the fuck's going on most of the time, and you're having to think about it. And I do like films that make you think, and they're not just like action fest type of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you heard of the film Memento?
Yeah, Chris Nolan, Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss.
Well, obviously you know more about it than me. But,
it's another film where it kind of has the idea of he's kind of reliving the same day almost, isn't he? Because he can't remember.
Yeah.
So it's
a psychological kind of sci-fi thing.
How much can he get done in that day before his memory gets wiped?
Yeah.
And then
he tattoos himself to make sure that he remembers and things like that. Exactly. But the way that he tells the story as well, it gives you one scene from the end of the storyline and then one scene from the beginning, and then it goes backwards concurrently from the end of the storyline, and then it feeds you from the front as well until it eventually meets right in the middle of the story, which is just such a mind-blowing idea from a film. I think that in itself, I love sci-fi, and although it's not really sci-fi because people are affected with that type of memory disorder where you can't make new memories. So it is weird, but the payoff at the very end of the film, it makes the film. So them are the three films. I wouldn't recommend Avatar to watch now because maybe it's a bit dated, but my two other films,
you have to be there sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out on DVD and Blu-ray, and I really didn't enjoy it compared to what my friends saw it in cinema said about it.
But as for Memento, definitely watch that if you haven't, guys. For real, you have to watch that. And I guess the Groundhog Day thing is just a personal thing. Yeah,
most people have probably seen that one as well. Memento, maybe not many people would have heard of, but Groundhog Day is a pretty well-known film.
If you want
great answers.
So, any other hobbies, Liam? Gaming, movies?
Not being a fountain of knowledge.
Fountain of knowledge.
I suppose it's a useless talent. Yeah, TV as well. I suppose the knowledge I can recall tiny, minute details from conversations I had years ago.
Yeah.
Don't know why, just can, but I think it's pretty useless talent. But
it's still a talent though, isn't it? It's very almost photographic memory. Pretty good. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess
I wish I had it, so therefore it's a talent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If someone else wants that, then it's a talent.
Okay.
It's like a superhero in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a superhero. You were walking amongst
Charles Xavier.
Charles Xavier,
yeah. And as for myself, as far as hobbies, I like to play football twice a week with just a friendly game with friends, like five-a-side games. Other hobby, watch TV shows I like a lot of. I like the old Breaking Bad, the Game of Thrones, all the gritty ones, Sons of Anarchy. I like the gritty ones, like the really dark ones, like Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm watching. I'm trying to get through. My wife won't watch them, so I have to watch them on my own time. I love those shows. She watches Game of Thrones, obviously, but it's funny because Game of Thrones is just going completely off tangent here. But my wife and I used to have a bet on the titty timer.
Yeah.
So how long into the episode will we see tits for the first time? So we had a sweepstake at every episode. It's right, I'm going to say 22 minutes. And it was funny. It's
yeah, believe it or not, yesterday I rewatched the very first episode of Game of Thrones again. Yesterday,
it's brilliant.
Don't know why. Just kind of, I think Robert Baratheon in my head. That line where he says, "Gods, I was strong," and I was like, God, I missed that because I've read the books. You've read the books as well, guys. And I recently, just yesterday, which was a Monday, by the way, by the time you listen to this, I recently watched, and it must have been about the 8th time I've seen that pilot episode. Absolutely love it.
It is classic.
Great.
Reading. That leads on to reading. My other hobby. I read it at night, every night. I like neuroscience. Neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
I like my neuroscience books. I love philosophy. I read philosophy for days. I'm a classic philosophies and all that sort of stuff. I grew up reading a lot of philosophy, I guess. That's what my main genre, really. I don't read fiction other than Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Science and philosophy. Other than that, there's not...
Play guitar a bit, don't you?
Yeah, play guitar a bit. So that about rounds us up for this week's podcast. So thanks for listening this week, guys, and thanks for your questions as always. It was awesome to you guys engaging in the Patreon feed and that. So this podcast is going out to the public next week. We haven't done that in the past. I was reluctant. I didn't like the fact that we there was a paywall. There was a patron paywall where the public I didn't have access to some of the content. So which is why from now on we're releasing all the podcasts to the public, but a full week after the patrons have had exclusive access to it. So if you are one of those public listeners or watchers, then I hope you enjoyed the podcast too. So that is it. We will see you again, or you will hear us again in next week's podcast. And until then, bye for now.